The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, there seems only one thing left for us to do in this world, that is to binge watch box sets.
Yes. I got my email today from Netflix, who very kindly told me that they're putting the price up.
I got that one as well. What has it gone up to? About
$9.99 now for me.
That's still less than what we're paying.
Yeah, you're probably paying for 4 screens. We only allow the kids to watch one at a time. We
only have one screen. We used to have one in the bedroom, but we don't have that there anymore.
You don't need to pay the extra then.
No. Well, what are we paying for then?
Pocketing the Netflix pocket.
What have you been binge watching?
I have been binge watching. Back in the day when I used to work in London, everybody was talking about Life on Mars and then Ashes to Ashes.
Oh, brilliant. Yes.
And I thought, that sounds absolutely rubbish.
No.
And then this week I've watched 37 hours of it.
No way. No, that's
brilliant.
Not.
I loved
was it
it.
37 hours of it? Oh, God.
Well, yeah, the first series, the Life on Mars was first, wasn't it? That was 3 series of about 8 episodes each. And I think they're just over an hour each. And then there's 3 series of the next one with the girl. And that's like, so there's like 16 hours each, isn't it? 30 odd hours, 36 something hours. Yeah.
It's wonderful how the policing is so old-fashioned.
Don't tell me the ending, though, because we've got 1 episode left.
Oh, right.
Saving that for tonight.
Oh, shh. Nobody tell Kev.
I'm treating Gemma to the last episode. It's my treat.
That's what we've got to. Fridays used to be, should we go down the Indian and have a dirty kebab on the way home? But now it's turned into, should we watch the last in the box set?
Yeah.
Have you watched This Is Us, by the way?
I have, yes. Although I found it very confusing.
No, it's beautiful, Kev.
Yeah, it is. It was good.
It does bounce back and forwards a bit, but it's we finished it. Well, we've got up to where we can get with it the other day, and we were quite depressed for a couple of nights actually. There was, Then we started watching Question Time, but that didn't last long.
The FujiCast.
You only can watch so many politicians and scientists say we've got to be indoors till 2028. Oh.
I want to go back to 1974.
Well, there we go. That's what we need. We need life on Mars.
And I want a big red Audi Quattro.
Oh, Kev, now you're talking. I always wanted a Quattro.
Gemma keeps saying, that Genie, he's all right, isn't he?
What? In terms of cars, though, the coolest car ever was, did you watch Starsky and Hutch?
Yeah.
I don't know, was it a Dodge? I think it was a Dodge, wasn't it? A Dodge Charger? Was it a Dodge Charger?
Don't know, it had big red stripe down the side, didn't it?
No, white stripe. It was red and had that white almost like Nike kind of stripe. Sort of reverse.
Like Colgate.
Maybe that's where Nike got the idea from, Starsky and Hutch. Mm-hmm. But, that was that was the car I always wanted. Oh. Anyway, well, welcome to the FujiCast. We won't be talking about our box sets for the entire show, you'll be pleased to know. Don't worry if you're not a Fujifilm shooter. We're a big community, and whatever flavour you shoot, you're very, very welcome. It's you and your questions, as always, if you've been sending them in either to the Facebook group or indeed to click at fujicast.co.uk. We got Kev's Book of the Week, which is...
3
books of the week.
No, it's called 3.
Oh, right, okay.
Yep. 3 by Ed Cashy.
Oh.
Now, I'm not sure if we've already spoken about this book, but I figured if I can't remember, then no one else could either.
Well, I do know Ed Cashy now because he's been on Photography Daily recently. So
that's what made me think about it.
I know Ed, I do. And talking of interviews, today we have part 2 of your interview with Daniel Meadows. So that's coming up in the show. I
had some really lovely feedback about that interview last week.
Great interview.
He's such a nice man.
Yeah, second part is just as good. And I nearly didn't make it a 2-parter. I nearly made it a really long length one, but I thought at the end, no, we'll make it a 2-parter. Like a box set, Kev, like a box set.
Yeah.
But not quite 37 hours worth.
No, not quite. Although I could easily talk to Daniel.
I think you probably could. Who's going to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Well, we had one come in literally just seconds before the show started from Simon Pope, who is based in Bunker Stroud, which is not so far from Bunker Malmesbury.
No, just up the road.
Which is where
that's where Gemma was born.
Was it? Does Gemma know him?
Possibly.
Okay.
No comment.
Hello, guys. I'm new to your podcast in 2021, so apologise if this has been addressed in prior episodes. Where were you? We started back in 1878. I'm an ex-commercial photographer, digital, who fell back in love with photography at the beginning of 2020 when I started shooting film. I'm not overly fussed about camera brands, although gas does remain a persistent issue. But what I am fascinated by is this one camera, one lens idea. Although I've been exploring this for a relatively brief period, I'm definitely now a 50mm shooter, having started with a 35. There are so many great photographers influencing us out there, from the new breed using 28 to the early day advocates of 50. I understand this isn't really a viable question for pro photographers, but wondered what you would both choose if you were pushed. Thanks for the hard work from Simon in Bunker Stroud.
Well, that one camera, one lens thing has been a thing for a while. And I remember Big Bert Stefani, he got a whole load of people doing the 50mm challenge, one photo a day with 50mm. And I think it was very successful. Yes, he alluded to it. Simon alluded to the fact that we can't really do that as professional kind of wedding photographers and stuff. But I suppose I recently, Fujifilm sent me the XE4 recently.
Okay.
I have it for a whole 1 week,
right.
and I actually love it. I also have the new 27mm lens on it, so I'm bolting that on there, and I'm not taking that off.
Right. Or giving it back.
Yeah, I will give it back, yeah. Well, I figured if I scratch it enough, Andreas won't answer it back.
Well, why don't you just lend me the lens and it can disappear into that sort of vacuum?
Well, this is the 27mm. Well, I don't think it's technically called the Mark II, but it's version 2.
Yeah.
And I lost 3 of the original ones because they're so damn small. I just kept putting them down and they just disappeared. So this one, anyway, I can't lose this one because it doesn't belong to me. But going back to the question, that camera, or I suppose any camera really, and a fixed lens is I mean, it's an idea, isn't it? And I always feel like the X100 gives us that option. Obviously, you can't really change it. You've got the teleconverters and stuff. And I think that, I've said many times, that if I had to choose just one camera, it would be the X100. So I suppose that answers the question in that it's probably 23mm for me.
Which for those that don't shoot Fuji, effectively is 35mm effective focal length, isn't it? And I think I'd be the same, Kev, actually. See, that the 23 and 56 for me are the staple diet of lenses. Yeah. But if I had to choose between 23 and 56, that would be difficult because I use that 56 so much. But what would I suppose really, you couldn't afford to be that close all the time, could you? Nah, go 23. Yeah. Come on, be a hipster. Be a hipster like me. I got my check shirt on and all sorts today. You're probably hipster. Well, I know on my X Pro 1 with the vintage lens, the Yashica lens I've got, the 28, has that's a focal length I've gotten very, very used to now, and I like that a lot. So 28 seems to be so that would be about the sweet spot. 44, wouldn't it? In not old fashioned but other language. So that's become that's a focal length I like. By the way, interestingly, sorry to go a little bit off topic, but back to the XE4 because it's kind of relevant to the rest of the interview with Daniel, and you'll hear later. And we talk about his ambition for a simple camera that basically just you just need to control the exposure triangle. Yeah, and a lot of people have been saying about the XE4 that because Fujifilm have taken away a lot of the buttons. There's not even a focus switch on there, which I am finding difficult to get used to. But the rest of the buttons, most of the buttons are gone, and it's really not. It's minimalistic. It's really nice. I really like that idea. Yeah. Apart from the focus switch, that is taking me time to get used to it. So I don't know if Daniel's listening. Then maybe the XE4 is worth him looking at. Yeah, and maybe Simon Pope as well. There we go. Maybe Simon Pope. Simon Pope as well. Right, yours. So we've had quite a few messages since I got a little bit angry in the group last week. You didn't get angry, thread, Kev. Which is very kind of you. No, you weren't angry. You were just you were. I think you were firm, but fair. Firm. Yes, that's the word. Firm. Okay, so I'm actually just going to start from the bottom. Johan Borhead says, and this is
specifically to me, but actually I think it applies to you as well. It says, Kevin, I see you have set up both f16.click and your own website with Squarespace. What made you choose that over WordPress? Which, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you dabbled with a bit before. He's been thinking about moving back to WordPress because it's free, but then he goes on to say he's lazy, and so Squarespace is just easier. So we have talked about this in the past, and in fact we did a whole episode, didn't we, just on website questions?
We did, yeah.
And then we got totally slated.
Yeah, we got told off for it, didn't we?
We did. We got told off.
I thought we were doing a public service.
Klimping. What a nice man. What a nice man.
I've forgotten about Klimping.
But so to keep it brief, Johan, because we have covered it before. Yeah, I've moved everything apart from the FujiCast website because that's quite complicated over to Squarespace. I just think it's easier, it's better, it's fine. I can do everything I need to do there. There is no SEO downsides over it. It's, in terms of cost, yes, WordPress is free technically, although when you start wanting to do anything fancy with it, you need to pay for hosting fees, and then you have to think about image sizes and all that. So Squarespace wins on that front. Squarespace, is costing me more than it used to with the WordPress systems, but I would never go back. I mean, I spend my days, looking out the window, watching box sets, and just generally with my feet up, rather than thinking about tags and alt text and my plugins that haven't worked. And I noticed this week WordPress rolled out an update that broke half of the internet. So, none of that worries me any longer. That's mostly why I did it.
When you say that there's no SEO problems, what do you mean by that? I mean, because obviously SEO is important, and there's no alt tags and stuff like that. But these are all the toys that we need to get Google to fancy us, isn't it? Yeah, no, there is alt tags in Squarespace. There's literally nothing that you can't do in Squarespace that you can do in WordPress in terms of SEO. Nothing. Sometimes you have to jump through a few kind of little hoops. Like the alt text is easy on single images. It's a little bit more difficult on galleries. But other than that, you can put schema markup into it. You can, you can do everything. It's great. I don't even put categories on my websites anymore. I don't have to worry about duplicate content. It's just, for me, works fine. Why do you not have to worry about duplicate content? What's different there?
Well, because it's not creating any. In WordPress, it creates a whole load of duplicate content. And in fairness, they have mitigated that over the years, but you have author pages, you have tag pages, you have category pages, you have taxonomy pages, you have media links. All of that is creating kind of duplicate content, really. And I suppose it doesn't have to. It is the way that the user implements it. But I think the biggest problem for people when they have all of these options for them is that they end up over optimizing it and spending sleepless nights worrying about it. I think that's kind of part of the problem. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, your mileage may vary, but Squarespace for me is nicer.
One thing I would mention with Squarespace, since they've gone to what's the latest version, Kev? 7.1.
Yep.
7.1. Which means that before you were able to choose different designs, but now you can't. You essentially, there's one website fits all, isn't it?
Yeah, you still start with a look, but there's no.
But it's not quite as it doesn't have as much choice as it used to. For example, you could put all your menus down on the left once upon a time, but you can't do that kind of thing now. It seems to me that if you have a Squarespace site, and I do, and I like Squarespace, and all my sites are going to go Squarespace. But they're all going to look pretty similar.
Yeah, they can look similar, but you can change it. They're good. You're right about the menus down the left-hand side, but I think personally that's a good thing, because who wants websites with menus down the left-hand side? That's ridiculous.
I might.
In my world.
I might.
I hate it. I mean, why? Menus should be at the top. That's why menus have been at the top since 2000 and since 1975.
Yeah,
so
but I mean,
if
you look, I mean, one of the websites I absolutely adore of late that I'm familiar with because of interviewing him, and then we've talked about him as well, is Søren Solkjær, the Danish photographer.
Yeah,
and his website's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's menus down the left-hand side.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It does look nice. You're right, and for me. We said we wouldn't spend time on this question, but here we go. So I used to be, when I worked after Microsoft, and then I went into consultancy, I was a user experience lead, if you like, UX lead.
Right.
And let me tell you now that menus down the left-hand side are not very good for you. They're bad for your hands. They're bad for your movement. The mouse, think about where that mouse has to go all the way over there instead of up the top and across, which is much more natural. So, yeah, anyway, that aside, it does look nice, I grant you. But there's nothing, the good thing about the 7.1, I think, is that you're right, there are certain things that were baked into the previous templates in 7.0. But in 7.1, it's very, I'm going to try and say this word that I can never say now, ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous. Ubiquitous. There's so many silent letters in that word.
Donald, what do you think?
Don't be rude.
I know. I brought you out of retirement just to tell him.
Ubiquitous.
Stop it.
Ubiquitous.
Even the chicken's getting angry.
Anyway, yeah. So honestly, you have got more choice in terms of design in WordPress, but ultimately, just remember that no matter which content management system you use, all it's doing is rendering HTML. You can write that in Notepad. The HTML it spits out is just exactly the same as anything else. So there's no kind of what's right and what's wrong. It doesn't what's good for the goose is not necessarily good for the gander.
Not good for the chicken. Well, one thing I will say is that of course you don't have to worry about what it's going to look like on different things like tablets and iPhones or other systems are available.
You just don't need to worry at all.
No,
that's what I find.
And
no worrying.
That's a very good thing about Squarespace, isn't it?
That should be their catchline. Squarespace, worry-free.
Don't worry. Right, Ted Strang. Is there a way to film? Simulation bracket only 2 instead of 3 different simulations?
No.
Is that it then? I'm always looking through the viewfinder and Acros, but sometimes I'd like to have that classic Chrome look. I only shoot JPEGs as I have no interest in editing much anymore. That's from Ted Strang in Madison. But you've said no immediately anyway.
No, 3. Yeah, just 3.
All right, okay. I feel a bit cheated with that, so I'm going to have another one. Dennis Lee.
It's a good idea. I'd like them to be able to do 2, but in fact, I'd like them to be able to do 5 as well. But no, 3 seems to be the number.
It ain't possible. Dennis Lee, who's a good friend of the show, there was a kind of a comment in the FujiCast which I clipped out in the Facebook group. So strictly speaking, this should really be yours, Kev, but it wasn't really a question. So, but he was talking about gas, and can we talk about selling these days? I've got a real problem, he says, with gas, but it's even worse with gas release. So in other words, he can't find a way that he can buy plenty, but he can't find a way to sell plenty.
Oh, I see. Yeah, let it go. Let it go.
Let it go. Yeah, it's a difficult situation, that, isn't it? What do you do?
Yeah,
I have a rule that if I've not used it the best part of a year, I don't need it, and I sell it. There we go.
Yeah.
Keep moving, everybody. Keep moving.
I kind of agree with that. I suppose that's very sensible. I have cameras that I never use, that I would never sell, but I also have. Yeah,
you're attached to some of those X100s, though.
I also have cameras that I use that I would sell quite comfortably when the next version comes out. So yeah.
I mean, in the cupboard at the moment, if I look in the lens cupboard, these are the things that I haven't used that are very close to going. So I've got an old Nikon. What's this one? 18 to 35. But I just because it's the only thing that fits my film camera. Probably shouldn't get rid of it.
No.
Oh no, this one I won't because that's yours. So I can't get rid of.
I'm listening very carefully.
Can't get rid of the 35.
Ah, I knew it.
I have got this 18mm. But I did use it the other day on a photo walk, and I quite liked it, but I haven't used it for a long time. But I do like it.
18mm f2, 18mm Mark II is on the lens roadmap. There will be a new version of that coming soon enough.
But then there's an odd one here that I have a very strange relationship with, the 27.
Well, that's what we just talked about. I've lost 3 of them, but now I have the new version.
Sorry, yeah, because they're so small.
Do you ever listen to me?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, yeah. I might sell that one with your 35. But then that's it, really. That's it. That's the stuff I don't use. So that shows you how often I sell stuff.
I'm going to have a big sell-off soon.
Yeah. Well, I would never sell any camera bags.
Oh, that's what I'm going to get rid of. I have to move. I'm moving offices soon, studios. So I've got bags and bags, hundreds of bags, camera bags that fit bags and bags inside bags. And bags all over the place.
I was filthy angry with you when you said to me you'd been into the pub and taken all your bags and given them to people.
Yeah, well, that's the best thing to do, isn't it?
No.
Bag recycling.
At least talk to me first. And then you got rid of all that flash gear as well. But you didn't sell it, you took it to the dump.
Yeah. Yeah, flash. Well, best place for it.
Anyway, so there we go. Dennis, maybe the thing to do is, but we have, to be fair, we've seen on Zoom calls into Dennis Lee's bunker. That's probably why we call it Bunker Malmesbury now. He does seem to live in this bunker underneath his house. And it is literally full to the rafters, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
in New York City.
Well, it's not in New York City, but there's a Channel 4 show all about people that hoard stuff, and Dennis would not look out of place in that show. Okay, yours.
Right, I have one from Jarell Gates, and she says... Question for Neil and Kevin. How do you enjoy, view, look at your own photos? Snaps of the kids, photos from past vacations, those photos that mean absolutely nothing to anybody else, but mean absolutely everything to us, dads, husbands, wives, mums, etc. In our house, we found that Google Photos has a screensaver app for Roku. I don't know what Roku is. That must be an American thing. No. So we've loaded it up with all these sorts of photos and just let them scroll past on the TV every minute or so. I like seeing them on the big screen, but I am looking into making cheap prints and filling a physical album or something else. Any ideas? Way to enjoy these photos. Well, thank you.
Yeah, every year we do one thing. We build a great big blurb book of everything, and that includes anything taken on the Fujifilm cameras, anything taken on the iPhones, anything at all. It can, it's not about what kit it was taken with or on. And those books, they come out regularly, and people, there's only 4 of us in the house. We look at them often, and we've got a book every year since the kids were born. There's a yearbook. That's how we do it.
Yeah. I've just looked up Roku, by the way. Roku is a brand of hardware digital media players manufactured by an American company, Roku. There we go. Right. Pretty similar for me too. We typically do. I didn't do one this year, though, funny enough, but that's probably because I only took about 8 pictures last year. I normally get a Jorgensen album, like a wedding album.
Oh, right, okay.
Done.
Oh, you do it properly.
Nice and matted, nice and Lovely. Big and stuff. And the reason I like the Jorgensen ones is because I can stand on them and they help me get the tins off the top shelf. Otherwise, I have to ask Gemma.
They're good for that. But it's got to be books for us. That's what we look at, and honestly, the boys can just they go back years and years with those books, and occasionally of an evening they'll say, "Oh, have you got the book for 3-4 years ago?" So we don't look at stuff digitally at all.
I recently, either just after Christmas or just before Christmas, I put my head together and started sorting out our personal photo library, my Lightroom library, which of course I haven't done. But one of the things I did do was I stripped out all of the videos from it. And that includes videos I've taken on my phone, drone stuff in Spain, all stuff, anything that's personal, but video stuff. And it was something like 132 gigabytes of video.
Oh my God!
It was a huge amount. So I've dumped all of that onto Dropbox, and the kids actually at home, they roar, they watch it, they love it, and because it's silly little things like them eating when they were babies and stuff like that. And, they love that. They absolutely love it, and they're just constantly looking through that.
Do you know, you're right, because we have a very similar thing. It's just kept on a drive. We've got a couple of copy drives of it. And looking back to when Thomas is throwing food across the breakfast table, they chuckle like mad at stuff like that. Yeah.
Makes me cry.
Does it? Why?
Growing up.
Oh, Kev. Here's one from Chris Orange. Hello, Kev. Hello, Neil. Hope all is well. Quick question. Like everyone else during lockdown, I've watched more Netflix. We should have had this at the start, actually.
Should have done.
Over the last year than ever before. And last week, I happened to watch the first 10 minutes of a Nicolas Cage film. Oh, we know who likes Nicolas Cage. Oh, no, it's not Nicolas Cage, is it? No, she likes...
Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, Jeff Goldblum. She has a real... I know. Look, listen. I know.
She's all about the Genie now.
Oh, is she? Right, okay.
And his red Audi Quattro.
Anyway, the film is called The Knowing. At the start of the film, a school class buries a time capsule full of information. Stories and drawings from the school to be dug up 50 years later by a future generation to see what life was like in the earlier days. My question for you is, if everything was done today and you had to choose 10 photos for a time capsule which told the story of the last 20 years for a future generation, what would be your choices? My word. I mean, we could spend all afternoon on this one.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's a cracking question. If there was a jingle for Question of the Week, you would have it.
Do they have to be photos we've taken?
Well, you didn't specifically say that, but I suppose it probably should be if it's from us.
Well, I don't know then. I mean, that's really hard because I don't take any pictures of kind of defining moments in time as such.
Well, you do, really. I mean, it's your family's defining moment in time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But people in 50 years' time will look at those and think, oh, yeah, they're really nice. And look at the clothes, look at the funny clothes they were wearing and look at the eyebrows on that kid. But
or you'll get skewed history in about 2,000 years' time where they see lots and lots of pictures of Gemma and think, oh, my God, she must have been the Queen.
She is the queen in my world.
Queen Gemma.
I don't know. I think, that would be tough.
Yeah.
20 pictures.
Okay, well, look, I suppose, take it out of our hands then. If you put 10 photos for a time capsule from whoever, who would they be for the last 20 years?
I would be taking one picture. There's a great picture of me and my friends dressed as dragons in Argentina at the rugby. That would go.
See?
That would go. Then I think some stuff from Spain.
What about pictures of history then?
History.
Yeah.
Oh, so what's happened in the last 20 years? Oh, God, so much.
Well, the last 15 years we've been locked down, so there's nothing really, is there?
I'd like to... when did he die? Was Freddie Mercury more than 20 years ago?
Yeah,
I'd like to,
when did Freddie Mercury die?
94, 91, 92, 93?
Let's do something that's going to really annoy people. Alexa, when did Freddie Mercury die?
Is she ignoring you?
No. It's just that when we play the podcast out, can you imagine that in some houses?
You can get on Alexa, they call them, what they call them, talents or something, those things you can plug in.
Skills,
that's it. Talents. You can get one that it means she won't do anything unless you say please.
Oh, can you?
Great.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Because it's horrible just saying, Alexa, shut up.
The Alexa's going mad everywhere now.
Alexa, shut up, please.
The boys use it for very serious things. It's Alexa, play us a wet fart. That's all we get at breakfast time. I'm sorry if you don't like that word. Freddie Mercury, 1991. Wow.
91, I thought it was around about then.
Ooh, so it's exactly 20 years.
It is 20 years, yeah. So I think we need to have something, because he was my hero, a musical hero.
24th of November. 24th of November.
So just before. Something like that. Then we'd have to have some of the really big moments in time, probably the wars we never needed to go into.
But also we'd have things like Black Lives Matter. That would be
that would be important. All the stuff in America recently.
Yeah. But Iraq, as you say, would definitely feature.
Yeah, we would have the changeover from Labour to Conservative probably in this country is quite a big thing.
Picture of
when the EU, leaving the EU, that was recent.
Well, you'd have to have a picture of Nigel Farage.
We're going to get into so much trouble for this because there's so many important things that have gone on in 20 years that we're just totally... Oh, I tell you what, though, I was very excited watching that Mars rover land last night.
You were very excited about that, weren't you?
That space stuff is good. And what's his name? When Felix jumped out of the hot air balloon at 1 million miles high.
Oh, yeah.
Felix Super Boomer, or whatever his name is. Super Boomerang.
It would almost be impossible just to choose a few that... that's been suggested by Chris, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would. But yes, so something like that. That was the best question we've had for a very long time, and we managed to totally massacre the answer.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the whole point about this is sometimes you feedback as well. We when I put this wall up here in the studio, it's I've put a time capsule behind it, something very, very personal behind it.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there's...
Is it Sam?
No, but there's something behind it that I've put up there because I'm considering that the day it's torn down, probably I won't be here.
Is it my 35mm lens? Funny enough, that reminds me, when we moved into our house, we had you've been to our house, so you know where our stairs go up in the kitchen, and there's this space underneath it now, under the stairs. But that was a wall. There was a wall there when we first moved in. And when we had that knocked down, we found a newspaper, Daily Mirror. And it was the Daily Mirror. That wall must have been put in on the same day or the day after England won the Football World Cup in 1966. No! And it was signed by all of the builders. And it was something like England. I can't remember exactly what was written on there, but something about the football. And it was signed by all the builders.
Brilliant. Well, what a great thing.
Yeah.
Right, well, we'll get back to your question shortly. We've got Book of the Week coming up. I think it's about time that we heard from Daniel Meadows, who you interviewed, what was it, two weeks ago now?
Yeah, about that, yep.
Okay, so here's Daniel Meadows, part 2.
Okay, so what happened next after university? And of course, I mean, I'm not going to go through all your exhibitions and all of that. You've got permanent collections at the V&A and Bodleian libraries and various places like that. But where did your career progress from that period of time?
Well, I mean, the bus thing was a sort of manic thing that went on until I was on the road until the end of '74, and then I wrote the book, which is called Living Like This, which launched at the ICA in London in October of '75 with an exhibition. But by then I'd already started a new piece of work, which was I became the again, it's like another age, isn't it? I was the photographer in residence to the Borough of Pendle in Lancashire. Can you imagine a local authority employing a photographer to respond creatively to the community around? I mean, they gave me jobs to do. I had to photograph, I think it was 800 buildings because it was Architectural Heritage Year and they wanted, all the details of buildings to photograph. And then I was no kind of architectural photographer, but it wasn't really, it was just, we needed this mullion window here and that extension there. And what's interesting is I went looking for some of that stuff recently, and they've got it all housed in a archive, and it's constantly referred to when planning applications are made. So that's kind of interesting. But that wasn't the work that enthused me. I mean, they gave me this long list, thinking it would take me, the 2 years to get around it all. But I'm a kind of manic worker once I get going, and I shot it all in 3 months. And what that taught me, I mean, I really learned my way around the neighborhood. And what I learned very quickly was that there were in that area a lot of, this is in northeast Lancashire, so it's high up in the Pennines. There were a lot of practices that I could see were about to disappear. Some of them industrial. There were still steam-powered factories, 1 or 2 still going, that were really like something out of Dickens. And there were also agricultural practices, like the way people killed their pigs, for instance, on the farm, which would never happen now. And I spent a lot of time with these. They were mostly what seemed to me like old men, but they were all over 40, and I was still still in my 20s. difficult people, a lot of them, quite hard men too. Trying to get close enough to them to be able to photograph what they did. And a lot of the things I did are quite esoteric. I mean, I have a Patreon page now. And each fortnight I post a different set of pictures. I've just been working my way through these, so they're quite fresh in my mind. I mean, there's the story about killing a pig, which is something that went on around Christmas and the New Year. There's a story about cleaning factory flue, the boiler flues in factories, which is possibly the dirtiest job I've ever seen anybody do. And I made the point of doing these jobs with these people, going into the situation to take the pictures. So crawling around in the dark, boiling hot flues of an industrial plant. Climbing factory chimneys. There was a steeplejack I got to know very well, and I did a picture story where I went up a chimney with him. On a few occasions I went up, but I've just been writing about from my notes from that time about the experience of climbing factory chimneys. And it's sort of documentary at its purest, in that I'm trying to record things that will shortly not be happening anymore.
Yeah.
And that body of work was recently republished by Cafe Royal Books, CRB, and they did the 8 stories video that you referred to from my Vimeo site is the 8 stories that are in a Cafe Royal box set, which they've just reissued.
Yeah, they're wonderful, those CRB books. So that brings me to talk about briefly the website, the photobus.co.uk. I have spent an unhealthy amount of time on that website over the last 2 weeks. It's the most wonderful place because it's like an Aladdin's cave. You click on a link and then you end up on Vimeo, or you come back and you're looking at the exhibitions and the pictures and the books, and there's audio, and there's just some beautiful stuff on there. I think one of my favorite ones was the polyphotos clip you put on Vimeo, which is about those, it almost looked like fast framed portraits. And I think the one you started talking about was the ones of your mother. I'd never even heard of those in that context.
Oh yeah, polyphotos are wonderful things. It was a way of getting your portrait done cheaply in the period really from the 30s through to just into the 1960s. They were in department stores. They're a bit posh, like it would be the sort of House of Fraser type department stores. And you saved up your money and you went into the studio, and they had this wonderful camera, which had, sorry, I'm terribly bad on numbers. I can never remember numbers. On the film, though, it does tell you how many pictures there were. I think there were 48 pictures on a single sheet of, I suppose it was, 10/8 film. And it kind of, the lens moved across the frame of the image, creating what we would now think of as sort of contact sheet type images of, and you'd have 48 pictures done, and you paid your money, and then a little while later, the proofs came, the contact sheet of that glass, what probably was a film plate, might have been a glass plate, I don't know. And then they were numbered, and you could, on a grid, and you could choose, I'll have, frame D8 or something. And then you could send off and have a print made. And my mother's were done in the war, because we're going to, well, you can watch the film, it's called well, you've seen it. So yes, it's about her being moved from working in London in the Bank of England, and then being uplifted because the bank moved a lot of its treasures, including her, to, she was a flunky, a secretary and underling, to country houses in various rural parts of Britain so that they wouldn't be damaged in the Blitz. Yes, and meeting my dad. So yes, the story of my parents, told through the polyphotos, which I've animated. So yeah, it's seeing my mother as a young woman. She's, I love, the digital technology allowed me to to scan each of those images separately, then play them back as animation, and my mother comes alive.
I think you're right. It comes alive, and it's wonderfully creative. I really hope that once everybody's finished listening to this, they head to the photobus website, because it really is. It's something of incredible importance, I think.
Well, you're incredibly kind. I keep thinking it's so old-fashioned. I mean, I haven't, I don't have the money or the, at the moment to really address making it, more modern. But I'm glad you like it and still can navigate it.
That's the charm of it for me. I think that's the charm. It's one of those ones. You go to websites these days and you start at the top and you finish at the bottom. But this is, you meander through history, I think, with this website. And I think, I don't change it. I wouldn't.
Oh, right. Oh, lovely. Oh, you've made my day, Kevin.
There you go. Okay, so we chatted on email briefly about one of my regrets. I was born and brought up in Newport, and I used to drive past on the bus every day, past the Newport Art School. Little did I know what was going on in there, and the school that I went to, photography just wasn't a thing. It was never an option. And you of course, along with people like David Hearn, Martin Parr and stuff, were teaching there sometime during the 80s, I think, was it?
Yes, I came to Wales in 83 and lived in Newport near the college. Used to walk in every day. David Hearn invited me. I'd been living in the north, but by then I'd started a family. And I mean, a lot of people, I think, who are photographers have struggled when they start. When you're alone and independent, you can kind of live your life on a bit of a whim. But once you want to have children and look after them and nurture a family and so on, you have to live a slightly more stable life, a more regular kind of existence. And David invited me to come to Newport and to work with him on the documentary photography program. And it was just the best thing to do, particularly when I had a young family. It was a wonderful experience. And I'm only sorry you didn't pop. Well, you were still a small chap, but I'm only sorry you didn't pop in. It was such a wonderful course.
Yeah, I know several people who went through it, and is a regret of mine. But there you go. We all have regrets. Doesn't define life. That's the important thing.
No.
So let's talk a little bit about not so much technology and stuff, but we'll start with what did you, being a photography podcast, of course, what were you shooting with generally? What film?
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. When I started my little shop in Moss Side, I had a Pentax and a 50mm lens, and I bought, I think, a 28 because the shop was so small and I couldn't get everybody in unless I had a wide-angle lens. And I used Ilford FP4, which was 125 ASA, and I'm glad I did because and I used a light, just one big studio light. It makes it look like all the pictures were shot with flash, but actually they were shot with a big photo flood light. So that was the studio. That was in Moss Side. Then when I lived on the bus, I had a Rolleiflex, and I shot all the portraits out of doors and tried to work in soft light. All the pictures were done against, as plain a background as I could find next to where the bus would be parked. So they were soft light, and they were daylight, and using a Rolleiflex, and I used triptychs at that point, and I was developing all my film on the bus, in fact, in my little darkroom there, and washing them in whatever water I could find, which was often public toilets or rain. Sometimes I used rainwater off the roof, which I collected in buckets. And I also had the Pentax still going at that time. And then when I became photographer in residence, I had actually met Philip Jones Griffiths, and the two of us, and Martin Parr, me and Philip Jones Griffiths together ran a workshop at Lumbank, which was Ted Hughes, the poet laureate's old house, which was basically given over to an arts foundation for running mostly literary workshops. But we ran a photography workshop there. And Philip had just published Vietnam Ink. And he said to me, you can't go on working using two different kinds of camera. You've got to make up your mind. Are you a medium format photographer, or are you a 35 millimeter photographer? And I said, dunno. And we went out together shooting. I took him around some mills, some old factories, and he was kind of blown away by this sort of Victorian industry that was still going on. And he said to me, what you need is 2 Olympuses, Daniel, and a bag full of lenses. And that's what he was using. And so then for the next decade or more, I used Olympuses and OM1s, OM2s, and increasingly lenses and flash guns and so on to go with them. And then at the time I was at Newport, David Hearn was using a lot of Olympus at that time. But I, at that time, started working in the film industry, doing movie stills. And so I had I was continuing doing my documentary work. So doing the documentary work, I was still working with my Olympuses and my old lenses, which I was very familiar with. There was a wonderful 40mm lens, which was, slightly wide of standard. And it just suited me perfectly. I loved working with that lens. And I did my documentary work, continued with the Olympuses, but then I gradually began moving to Nikons. And then for the next decade, when I was working in movie stills business, basically something I enjoyed, but it's probably the only commercial thing that I could do that I A, enjoyed, and B, earn me money, which I needed to earn because I had quite a large family by then. And yes, and then the digital age came, and there are 2 things going on here. One is that I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a decade or more ago, and that makes me a fumbling soul now, in that I'm very clumsy with my hands. For various friends, including David Hearn, bless him, kind of rallied round and lent me cameras to play with and to try and to, and I ended up with the camera that I'm sitting on the floor beside me now, which is my Fujifilm X Pro 1. But I find it increasingly difficult to use because it's got, oh God, Kevin, I don't know how to say this to the FujiCast man, but cameras for fumbling old men like me have that you pick them up, and it's got, I counted, there's 22 different buttons on the outside of that camera, and God knows how many more things are activated once you press one of those menu buttons. And every time I pick it up, it's like picking up something new for the first time. You look through the viewfinder and it's completely different from the last time. You're like, what did I do wrong? And I think to myself, what camera would I really like? The camera that I'd really like now, and I think it would be a useful thing for students as well, actually, is that basically, I don't want to be patronized by the equipment. I do understand focus, I understand aperture, I understand shutter speed, I understand ISO, and I understand the relationship between them all. And my brain's pretty much hardwired to calculating all of those things when I'm looking through the viewfinder. But what I don't want is something that tells me that, oh, at this moment, bleep, 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 flash, flash, flash. Oh, you're making a picture, though it could be like a 1980s roll of Portrait or something. Like, I don't care. What I care about is, can I just set the aperture, please, on a big button on the front or a knob? Why do I have to have all these flashing lights and menus? Oh, God, and things that go bleep. Sorry.
Well, I have to say, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. There's lots of people who would love a camera like that. I know that for a fact. And maybe there's ears listening that might go down that route. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Wouldn't it be great to be able to pick something up that you're just in charge of the exposure triangle, and the rest is down to your eyes, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what I need, really. And for years, that's of course what you had. I mean, an Olympus was pretty much like that. It didn't have too many buttons on it. It did have a light meter in it, but it was only a needle going up and down the side. It wasn't like 1,000 flashing things telling you what priority is going on at the moment. A's and P's. Just give me M. That's all I want.
Daniel, it's been amazing speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Where can, if you want to just let us know, we've talked about the photobus website, but is there anything else? Do you have Instagram or any of those other modern?
I do have an Instagram account. I mean, it's been a sort of lockdown thing, putting stuff on during the first lockdown. I'm a member of a little photo book Zoom club on Facebook. Keeps me in touch with the photography world and all these young people. I mean, I started off as the kind of needy granddad of the group, but they're wonderfully nice people, and they all persuaded me to start using Instagram. So I did spend some time putting the bus portraits up on Instagram during the first lockdown. So yeah, there's Instagram things to look at. I mean, the one that I would try to encourage people to look is my Patreon page. It's just patreon.com/Daniel Meadows. And for £1, you only have to pay £1 to join. But it is a place where I talk about my archive, my archive is now in the Bodleian. All of my documentary work is in the Bodleian Library in Oxford. And, I'm trying to keep that, which is obviously closed at the moment because of all of the, the pandemic. And so I try to talk about the things that are in it and to play bits of audio and video and also from time to time offer prints at affordable prices in return for the loyalty of people paying me where you can pay £1, £3 or £5 a month. I offer prints at more affordable prices and so on, and it's been going quite nicely, and so I would invite people to do that. But yeah, if you don't want to do that, I'm so pleased you like my photobus website. You cheered me up, Kevin. I can't tell. And there's a new, my latest book, when the Bodleian acquired my work, which was a couple of years ago, they celebrated with a lovely exhibition in Oxford in October 2019. So 15 months ago. Yeah. And they published a book which is called Now and Then England, 1970 to 2015, which remains in print, thank goodness, which is nice. And it was for a little while one of the Amazon bestsellers. So it seems to have gone down really well. And I think if you want to have a good overview of my career with a book that's affordable. I mean, the problem with some of the books that you mentioned earlier is that they're expensive now because, they were printed in reasonably small editions some years ago and they've become collector's items. But, the book the Bodleian did is a lovely production, and it's 25 quid on Amazon or something, and so it's all there for people to see if they want.
Yeah, I actually have that book. My wife raises her eyebrows regularly when the postman turns up with my nearly 400 photo books now, is I think something like that. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to support Daniel via Patreon and his books and everything else. It's great, and I think the more that people can carry on seeing your work, Daniel, I think the better it is for everybody.
Oh, Kevin, it's lovely to hear. Thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure to have Daniel Meadows on the show for the last couple of weeks, and of course all the links he mentioned will be in the show notes today. If you like your interviews, you're invited to jump across to Photography Daily after the show today. Today, a really interesting story about the trumped-up charges stopping photojournalists from doing their work. Two photographers with two fascinating stories from two totally different countries that are interestingly very close in terms of their shared narrative.
Plainclothes police arrived and they were quite rough and started accusing me of, taking part in this protest and criminal damage. And I was like, well, look, I didn't do that.
When they came to the house, they said, are you Andrew H? And I said, yes. And they said, we're arresting you for criminal damage.
Then on Wednesday, a beautiful story of family love during personal tragedy. A New York Times shooter over the last decade, Nancy Borowick, who we've mentioned on this show, has narrowed the focus of her work, telling stories of health and struggle and personal relationships using compassion, humility and trust. as photographic tools to connect with and explore the lives of her subjects. It's a true and very authentic story of life and love and family when we talk about the book, The Family Imprint, on Wednesday.
I had never done something so personal, and I felt like what I knew how to do was just be there and shoot. And she became very comfortable with me having my camera around.
It's over on Photography Daily, available on all podcast apps. Right, back to the questions. Kev, I think you're going first on this one.
Okay, so we've got one from Steve, the moderator Vaughan. He says, do either of you use a Wacom tablet or similar when editing? I asked this in another group, and I was shocked to see that most people do. I've never gone with one, although I am trying again.
Yeah, I have tried to use the Wacom tablets and controllers, and I just, no, not for me. No, I haven't. I mean, I've got
reckon.
Look, I've got one in here. Kev, it's just in here. Look,
everybody's got one.
I've got one, but I've never used it.
And even Steve says, I'm trying again. I've never got on with it, but I'm trying again. I am convinced that Wacom have sold at least 3 tablets to every photographer. Because what happens is you get one and you think, nope, don't like this. And then about 18 months later, you see that loads of the trendy people are using one, and then you think, I better try again, get another one. No, don't like that. That goes in the cupboard or on eBay or something, and then about 18 months later, I think, what can I buy this week? I've got everything. What haven't I got that's got a plug on the end that I can buy? I know. I'll get one of those.
Yeah.
I've had about 4 of them. However, what I will say is I don't use it for editing every day, but I do use it for my colouring. My colorizing of black and white images is really useful for that.
Yeah.
But no, not for general
How
stuff.
do you use it for that?
I just use the pen to do the colouring in, because it's quite specific especially on things like eyes and skin. You've got to be very, very careful. And I do find it easier with one of those. I don't have a Wacom though. I've got a cheap Chinese, I don't know what the brand is, but it was about 30 quid on eBay, on Amazon.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So no, Steve, we don't use them.
I bet all the photographers out there are nodding their head, going, "Yeah." I've had 3, and some of them are thinking, maybe I'll try again.
We've got a cupboard full of them. Yeah. Darren Rose, are you ready for a flippy screen gate? I have to have at least one a week. I've owned cameras with both flippy and non-flippy screens, and it really does come down to what I'm shooting. But since starting to do more video and starting a YouTube channel, the flip-out screen has been a lifesaver. However, when shooting landscapes, I hate them. I don't understand why people hate them so much. Well, what does it do? Jump out and talk to you or something? just flip it back in and don't treat it as a flippy screen.
No, it's not quite like that, because it means that it can't articulate down in the same way as a normal flip down screen does. Right, okay. I think so, and it's it's like a 3 movement thing to do it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's incredible. There was a post on the Facebook group this week about somebody who posted another picture of, it wasn't his, but of somebody who'd broken their screen off. And yes, of course, it does introduce the potential for things to break if it's hanging off the side of things. But then, the benefits are there as well. I do genuinely understand why people don't like it, but at the same time, I think for certain aspects and certain elements, they're essential. When I'm filming here and doing my YouTube stuff, I've got a great big monitor sticking off the side of my camera that I have to HDMI out to, because I need to see myself.
See, you need a flippy out screen. That's what you need.
Yeah, I need a flippy tilty thing. Well, but I don't have any cameras with that, so I can't. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this is ever going to go away. Somebody, surely, I think Panasonic Panasonic have got some kind of system that everybody seems to like.
Yes, Darren has said that. He says there's only one camera that I know which does both. And it's the screen on the Panasonic S1H. Maybe Fujifilm should take a leaf out their book and go for the best of both worlds, although it probably wouldn't fit with the aesthetic approach that Fuji have.
Well, I can't imagine for one moment that they haven't thought about this. I mean, I have no idea, but perhaps there's some kind of patent issues with that kind of decision. If there's only one company out of all of the companies that seem to have got it right, I would imagine they've patented it up to their eyeballs, and so nobody else can use it, and rightly so. I don't blame them.
I've always thought Canon got it quite good as well. Their flippy out screen's quite nice. The way it articulates round and down and up, and
it's been a long time since I used Canon. They didn't have any screens when I used Canon.
They didn't even take pictures.
Yeah, okay. But yes, I think that one's going to run and run.
I'm going to put you in the very angry about flippy screens pile, just over here.
It's getting bigger, that pile.
It's getting a huge pile. I think we've got time for one more before we go for the book. Do you want to go for it?
Yeah, why not? So this is from Ben Wagner, or could be Wagner. Depends on where he's from. Question: how often do you use local adjustments, radiance, gradients, brush tool in editing your wedding photography? Do you touch up every photo with those types of adjustments, or do you only focus on a handful of hero shots? I always love it when people call them hero shots. Hero. I always think of like Superman or something. Yeah. And stick with the local slider adjustments elsewhere, or do you not use them at all?
I use them all the time, actually, local adjustments. Have you been locally adjusted? I have. Yeah, I use them all the time. I think every single picture has some sense of local adjustment going on within it, whether that will be some kind of dodging and burning thing or a color adjustment, or all the time. I don't think any images will go past, well, maybe a few, but not many will go past with me thinking, right, let's just do a general color thing there and a bit of exposure, bring up the shadows, gone. No, I do go into each image with a little bit more detail than that.
I use them too. I don't think I use them as much as you. I'd probably say maybe 20% of my pictures do some, but probably it should be more is the answer. But yeah, especially the grade. So the radial filter I use the most. I tend not because I think it's just a different way of doing something. So I tend not to dodge or burn using the brush. I tend to draw a radial around the area that I'm interested in, and then either darken down around it or brighten up inside of it.
Okay.
But similar process. So yeah. They're very handy, actually. I think Lightroom's very easy to use.
Could you see yourself using any other system than Lightroom now? I've got so used. I know we've talked about this before, and we've both dabbled trying other things, but I always return home to Lightroom. Yeah,
I have no problem at all with Lightroom. I have no problem with the images it produces or anything like that. Capture One is obviously the other duck in the ocean, if you like, that lots of people use, and of course that's perpetual license rather than monthly. So that there's benefits to that. But yeah, I Capture One, I have tried it, and I just the workflow didn't work for me. I just couldn't get the workflow right. And I use a lot of smart collections. I use a lot of my presets. My presets are based on profiles, lookup tables, which are not easy to do, or in fact, I don't even know if you can do them at all. Use lookup table based profiles in Capture One. So yeah, it's a bit like a Wacom tablet. I'm sure I will go back to it at some point in the future. But for me, Lightroom is great. I love it. I do really like it.
Yeah, with you on that one. Right, should we do Book of the Week? 3.
Yes.
3. From 7. From 7 if it's Ed Cashy.
Yes, so Ed Cashy is obviously from the 7 collective. Is it collective? Is that what they would call it?
Well, it's agency, photo agency.
Agency. So the book 3 is the blurb is a collection of triptychs. I love that word. Triptychs are much easier to say triptychs than ubiquitous. By acclaimed photographer Ed Cashy, which plays on the visual appetite of a hectic world. The triptychs span eras and continents, challenging notions of perspective and a possibility for the singularity of an image. Contained in a format dating back the Middle Ages, Cashy's images examine current issues of social and political significance, bringing together the joy, sorrow, destruction, and reconstruction of a world in flux. There we go. That's a nice write-up, isn't it? That last part of that sentence could be a wedding, couldn't it? Political significance, bringing together the joy, sorrow, destruction, and reconstruction of a wedding. Yeah. So onto the book, and it's a really nice. This is a hardback. I've got the first edition of this. Now, I've just looked on Amazon, and it doesn't seem to be available on Amazon, but it is available from other sellers around about £50. So you'll probably find it in bookstores or on A-books and things like that quite easily. And it's a horizontal book, which suits the format really well. And it's got some really nice pullouts as well. So a lot of the pages, or many of the pages, you kind of open up, and then it's a single image on one side, and then you flip it open, and then you end up with 3 full pages spreading outside of the book. And so these triptychs work really well. There's no page numbers, so I can't really give you a guide to that. But the one I'm looking at one right now, which is a gentleman with no clothes on a pier in a country sunbathing. And the middle picture is what looks like a herring fish. And there's all of the birds behind it and all that, somebody holding the herring. And then on the right-hand side is another man who is sunbathing also. This time he's got a little bit more clothes on, but he's on a bench in some kind of sports field, and there's the sports team are training behind it. So kind of each of these sets of images flow nicely together. Now, not all of the pages are pullouts like that. You have some that are in war-torn countries. There's an incredible picture here. Actually, this one does have a page number 52 of a guy in a car. The back door of the car is open. You can just about see the guy inside the car looking out. And so that right at the end of the frame, right at the edge of the frame, is somebody's hand, and he's holding a a radio. But most importantly, and at first glance you might not notice it, you might just think it's trees, but behind it, just dust, huge from an explosion of some kind, like billowing explosion. The middle picture is of a decimated, what looks like a town hall or something, with a policeman outside with a gun, and that place has been bombed within an inch of its life. Whoa. And then the third picture is a similar scene. It's what looks like some kind of military outpost that has also been bombed. The next page is of which culture is it where they cover the faces of the dead in a I can't remember, but anyway, it's of that area. So you've got a lady, and then in the middle there's 2 bodies that are also fully shrouded. Then on the right hand side is somebody who's presumably mourning, but she's also shrouded. Now she's also got so this is all to do with the burns and everything on her hands, so her hands are all bandaged up. Some horrible pictures, but important pictures. There's a really bizarre picture on shortly after that. Now this will have been in Northern Ireland, I'm fairly sure of that.
Yeah, you did spend some time there actually.
Yeah, Northern Ireland. So you've got a wall that has stenciled dissident Republican kind of painting on the wall.
Yeah.
And then you've got 2 sets of men and women having a good old grope and a snog, one holding a can of beer.
I know this picture very well. Yeah.
And then in the middle is somebody jumping over a fire with a British flag in the background on a wall. So, and that fire presumably is burning something. And then on the right hand side, you've got the distance with bazookas and guns and all masked up with their balaclavas. God, that gives me chills, because do you remember? Obviously, we were not affected by it, but we used to see it on the news all the time.
All the time, yeah.
And I remember when I used to go to London. I used to work in London in those early days, and when all the bins were taken away, and in the city when they put up the bollards all around the city to stop people, the IRA, driving into the city and just blowing things up.
Well, my mum always used to say we never went to the Hamleys toy shop, which I loved. I always wanted to go to Hamleys, but we never went there. And she always used to say, well, it's a fire trap, darling. It's a fire trap. It's just too much. It's too high, and it's a fire trap. It was nothing to do with that at all. It was all to do with the fact that she was fearful of the IRA bombing campaign at the time. Yeah.
I mean, I remember I was in London once when, I want to say Paternoster Square, but I'm not sure if it was Paternoster Square. Anyway, when one of the squares in London, one of the bin bombs went off. I was there. Yeah, not at that point, but I was in London that time, and obviously all the tubes and everything stopped. But yeah, wonderful. I mean, it's a really interesting layout of a book. There's no words as such. I mean, there's intros and outros, but it's all about the pictures. And you've had, or you are having, Ed on the Photography Daily, right?
Well, he has been on actually a few times.
He's been on. So yeah, if people listen back to that interview on the Photography Daily, I'm sure they'll get a bit more of an understanding of some of these pictures. Yeah. But I do like at the back of the book they have the oh God, what do you call it? The little thumbprints with explaining the pictures underneath.
Glossary, Kev?
Yeah, anyway, so if I'm going to try and find that one, we were just talking, there we go. Right. Northern Ireland, 1989. Young Protestant couples embraced during the 11th night bonfire under the ever-present symbol of the paramilitary in Belfast's working-class Tiger Bay.
It's fascinating watching people choose triptychs. I must admit, I didn't really talk to Ed about this, but I have interviewed Mark Power about it, the Magnum photographer, who, of course, with Fujifilm, there was that collaboration, wasn't there, between Fujifilm and Magnum for the Home project. That's right. Yeah. And I remember interviewing Mark, and I watched him as he chose the triptychs, the pictures to go with each other. And many of these pictures have been taken months apart. They were, these aren't, I think people think of triptychs sometimes as something that has to naturally follow on from each other in the same kind of situation, same maybe scene, and maybe the same few moments that stuff was taken, but it doesn't have to be like that at all, does it?
Well, I'm gonna now I feel quite bad about this, but the one remember I told you that bit just now, and I said, now which culture is it that puts masks over their faces when they're dead?
Yeah.
I got that completely and utterly wrong.
Have you?
I couldn't have been more wrong. I'm really glad they're not dead. That's the most important thing. But the first image is a woman who's recovering because her husband threw acid on her face. So that's sad.
Oh my word.
But the second image, where I said they were both wrapped up, shrouds, dead bodies.
Yeah.
California, 1988. Spa patrons undergo a cold wrap.
Oh my God. Oh, Kev.
Oh my God! And then the one on the final one, I did get that right. She was receiving burn treatment. But the link between those triptychs obviously is the gauze and the gauze that they're wearing.
Yeah, goodness.
I should have read that first. Terrible.
Do you know that's the beauty of this show? We are only human, Kev. Particularly
and
you.
I did think about not mentioning that, but then I thought, oh my God, I'll get the emails. The emails will come in.
Yeah, watch them. I need to complain.
I once did a video on YouTube. I think it was a review of the X. No, it wasn't. It was about looking for emotion in pictures or something. I can't remember anyway. But one of the pictures that I mentioned was one of the Martin Parr pictures. And I knew that it was wrong, but I mistakenly said it was a picture of cricketers on an English cricket pitch. Right. And it wasn't. They were crown green bowlers. I still get the comments now. No, there's nothing like these comments are. There's no. Oh, thanks for putting this video out there. Thanks for showing us this stuff. Thanks for educating us with this. Thanks. It's like that's bowls, not cricket, or even I get things like that's a very big cricket ball.
Oh dear, Kev. Anyway, back to the book.
Yeah. So 3 by Ed Cashey. It is a lovely book. I've had it for a long, long time, so I don't know where I got it from. But it's a really nice book. It is still available, but you might have to search for it. Nice collection for your shelf, for sure.
Good.
And you can go to the Photography Daily and listen to the interview with him.
Well, yeah, but it won't be about that. The Photography Daily interviews we did. It was a two-parter. The first one was about looking after his father-in-law, and the second one was just more generally about his work, and he's a very interesting chap, that's for sure. But good. Right, ready for a question?
Yeah.
Mark Dell, listening to you guys about the subject, this subject, I used the X100V. Oh yes, flash. This was flash in the X100V. An off-camera flash with the V. It's been updated, Kev, to allow ND to be used in video. Oh right, that was just a sort of a reminder.
Yes.
Did you know that?
Yeah, so the X100V, the latest update, which came out a couple of weeks ago, now allows you to use the ND filter in video, which is nice because you can film outside in bright lights. And yeah, of course, it's got its own little lovely built-in flash.
There's another very quick one here from Johan Borhead, who I know has featured already. Hi, fellas. Lovely audio quality on the latest episodes with Valerie Jardin and Adam Carnach. Guess they could have recorded themselves. They recorded themselves. Can Kev make use of the same thing instead of the blobby microphone thing through? Well, I have.
This is. Do you want to have a go at me about the cricket balls as well?
Yeah. No, I know. Well, it's partly go at me, isn't it? Because I produce the show each week. But I've got to be honest. If you are the Adam Carnach one and the Valerie Chardin one, those interviews take quite a long time to post-process when you're joining everybody together and taking out look, without going deeply into it, having both of us record our separate parts then try to join them together is a much, much longer editing process.
Yeah, it is. And we can do that. We have discussed that, having recording into boxes both ends, and then fitting it together at the other end. But
it becomes it's a kind of two-stage process because you have to do that bit first. Then when you've done that, you go through in real time and edit because this is a real-time edit. You listen to a lot of podcasts, by the way, and you will hear lots of stuff in there. And I'm thinking, well, I wouldn't have let that through. Oh, that noise. Oh, that. Whereas I try to edit in a it's a yeah.
Hang on.
There's your answer.
Yeah, well, you can blame COVID, frankly, because if it weren't for COVID, I'd be in the studio with you.
You'd be opposite, wouldn't you? Do you think you'll, when we're allowed to mix again, will we carry on doing the show as before? Or will it always be this way now? Are you very happy in Bunker Malmesbury?
Hang on.
Here's your answer to that one as well.
Can't do that when I drive to yours.
Absolutely. I'll drink to that. Right, yours.
Okay, another question from the Facebook group. Thank you very much for doing that. I'm looking for a relatively short one. Alex Fredrickson from the Austrian Alps says, "Hi guys, can you talk a bit about photo book publication, please? How to prepare and select images, how to choose format paper, how to publish, how to sell." It's a veritable minefield.
God, it is, yeah. Well, all those things. So Alex wants to sell her books, yeah?
Well, she wants to pick the pictures, find the right paper,
sing the theme tune.
Sing the theme tune.
Do you remember that? Sing the theme
print
tune,
it,
make the theme tune.
And sell it, yeah. I mean, neither of us have really done that.
No.
So we're not the right people to answer. However, what I will say is we had, I think, Kant Rathood. We spoke to him before about his self-published stuff. Yeah. He's in the Facebook group, so he might be able to help you, Alex.
He will, yeah.
Obviously, Sean Tucker, I got his volume 4 of his book the other day.
Good, it's good, isn't it? It's very good.
He talked about it briefly, I think, when we interviewed him all those, probably 18 months ago now.
Eons ago.
So it might be worth just digging into the archives a little, Alex, for that answer, because we just, we just don't. I don't. I mean, I'm talking for myself. I don't know. You might know.
Choosing is obviously the subjective part of it, but then that's the same as culling any work that you present professionally anyway. It's when it comes to selling, of course, blurb. I think both Kant and I know that Sean goes through a printer. I should know this about Kant because we've spoken about it, but sorry, Kant, apologies, but you can answer this in the Facebook group. But when it comes to selling, you could choose to sell through Blurb because they have an opportunity to self-publish and sell your work, and it's a pretty,
and it'll squirt automatically through to Amazon as well, won't it?
It will. And it's a fairly easy process. It's not necessarily the cheapest process out of all those that we've talked about. But it's a good process, and if you want to introduce yourself to it, I would suggest that's probably one of the best ways to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of paper, my favourite books are the ones where they've thought about the paper. Some of them are on very delicate rice paper. The matted the tactile feel of some of the paper is beautiful.
Uncoated, I love the feel of uncoated paper.
Uncoated, yeah. So the Ed Cashy book, which we've got now, is a pretty standard. I mean, it's good quality, but it's pretty standard coated gloss paper, I would have thought. You're not intrigued by the paper choice with that book. But others you are. So
Blurb do an uncoated stock, so you can. And I always like the sort of the kind of rough feeling of that. Do you want a question from John Tamilano?
No, let's pick someone else.
You can't do that to John. He'll be sitting there thinking, "Oh, what's the matter with my question?" It's the last question of the week, and you've just cast him aside. So you have. John, I'm on your side. Hello to both of you. First, let me say that I don't like Kevin. No, he doesn't say that. That I look forward to listening to your podcast every week. Great info, very entertaining, apart from Kevin. And yes, I plan to support you very soon. Well, there we go. John is now our new favourite person. Question, I have the XT30 and love it, and wanted to add to my kit with an X Pro 1 or X Pro 2. I'm an amateur photographer, so I'm wondering which would be best next for me. Also, with the X Pro 2 drop in price, will the X Pro 2 drop in price when an X Pro 4 comes out? Kevin, is there a 4 coming? Thank you for the feedback. Hope you and your family stay safe and healthy. From John. P.S. he says, not sure where to put the yes for a shout out, so I'll put it here. There we go. Instagram at 2 Moons Photography.
2 Moons Photography, that's nice, isn't it? Yeah. X Pro 4, no idea. And even if I did have an idea, I wouldn't say anything, but I don't.
Okay.
I would say the X Pro 3 hasn't been out for, hasn't even been out for 18 months yet, has it? So
it feels like a couple of years now. Is it? Sure? Just 18 months? Where are we with it?
Wasn't it like March? Maybe it's 2 years in March or something. No, it was later, wasn't it? Because the XT3 came before the X Pro 3.
I remember making an initial film for the X Pro 3, which was ages and ages ago.
Yeah, I think the X Pro 3, they flipped the release cycle. So
right, okay.
The XT3 came before the X Pro 3, whereas previously it's always been the other way around, I think. Anyway, I really don't know. But yeah, I mean, they will go down in price. Of course they will. When newer versions come out, you can get some smashing deals on X Pro 2s and things like that these days.
Yeah. I mean, the X Pro 2 I used for quite a while for weddings and really liked working with it. But I am a bit of a video man. I need a camera that feels appropriate for video and feels right when I'm using it for video. So the Pros went and the Ts arrived, and I stuck with the Ts after that. But the X Pro 2 is a fantastic camera. I've been using the X Pro 1, as you know, Kev, for all my family and personal work of late, teamed up with a Yashica vintage lens. But if you say you're not using it professionally, so maybe an X Pro 1 would be great for that. And you can get some thumpingly good deals on an X Pro 1. Yeah,
X Pro 1, it's still a good camera. I mean, it was the original 16 megapixel sensor, so it's not going to be as good in kind of low light and in terms of autofocus speed and everything. But if you're not needing that, then yeah, go for it. It's a lovely camera. I really love the JPEGs out of those first generation sensors.
Yes, there is something about. I mean, I'm very, very pleased with the X Pro 1 for myself. The X Pro 2, though, yeah, I did have a proper sort of love affair with that camera until, as I say for the video, I switched to the T system. But there we go. Well, hopefully that answers your question, John. And that's it for another week. We're all dunded, so we are. Next week, Jane Odell is on the show. I keep saying this, and she's talking about obviously her love of well, I don't know if I should mention equine photography now, Kev.
Oh no!
How's the equine thing looking? Have you got the horses yet? They are looking very strange, Kev. I've got to be honest. When do they arrive, or when does it arrive?
I don't know. I think it's all to do with the post.
What?
Delays, yeah. Something to do with the post.
You can't send a horse.
Honestly, hopefully soon, because Rose the Blesser is desperate for it. Yeah. We're looking. We're looking.
Well, look, if you can share the episode in Twitter or Facebook, you're an absolute star. Let us know where you're sharing, because we'd like to give those platforms a shout out too. See you in the Facebook group for any questions you have about today's show. Play it nice, of course, because our moderators, Steve and Peter, in there. With not such large eyebrows as Kev, but they will still give you a proper Paddington stare if you misbehave. Send your questions in via the Facebook. Of course, there's the you've put a post at the top, haven't you? That's there waiting.
And if you want to get your questions answered even sooner, you can Patreon us up.
Oh yes.
Patreon.com FujiCast.
Patreon us up.
Patreon us up. Yeah.
What? Or you can send your emails in still to click@fujicast.co.uk. Thank you to Daniel Meadows. Music from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. And we will see you next week. Bye, Kev.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.